Welcome to 50/50 Books, the book review podcast where the books are split in two, and figuring out just what is going on is a toss-up. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jonathan. This episode we are reading Solaris by Stanisław Lem, up to but not including the chapter titled Monsters. When did this book come out again? It's like old,
I think
right?
it's 1961.
I feel like a couple of things show immediately, like the age and the translation for the book. Because already this feels like, I almost want to call it one of the weirder ones we've done, but I don't know if that's the right word for it, but definitely just not. This is not anything like a book I've read before, though sometimes I get that feeling from sci-fi, but like this definitely feels like a different tone.
Yeah, it's hard to tell if it's like the book or if it's because it's translated. Like sometimes it can be hard to like get meaning across the way you're meant to. And then obviously we might be dealing with like certain phrases or like ways of doing things that we're not used to.
Yeah, like kind of the cultural differences that get built into it.
Yeah.
This is a recent translation, the one that we're doing, right? I didn't mention it in the opening, but this is the Bill Johnston one. I didn't write the name down, so that's from memory.
Yeah, we did the Bill Johnston one because I had seen that it's the better of them. And like the one that the family thinks is the better of them. So I don't actually know when it was done. Let me check. Yeah, I'm seeing 2014.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty fresh.
Yeah, considering, yeah.
And this is like, I think, a well-known sci-fi book, like from brief internet look. Like this is a foundational work in some people's view.
Yeah, and I think this author is like a big deal in the sci-fi community.
It makes sense. So the reason why I say that is because I was looking up how to say his name. And like, so people's comments on the like how to say this guy's name page were like, everyone in sci-fi knows how to say this name.
So we might be in trouble, depending on how this goes. But yeah.
Anyway, sorry. This is like a lot of background diversion, but like, do you have any other upfront feelings, thoughts you want to share before we get into it?
I feel like my brain is partially not computing what's happening, which might be a me problem, but like chapter 2, I think we both talked about in the group chat, and we're like, this is kind of like frying my brain a little bit.
Yeah.
And I feel like I do have to pay attention this time. Because it's a pretty short book, and I feel like all of the words matter a great deal.
I fully agree with that, where it feels dense, not just, I mean, definitely because of the sort of scientific angle, but just because, yeah, I think you're right. Everything seems to have an effect. There's not a lot of fluff in this book by any means. It's a short one, so that kind of was obvious from the start that it might be that way. But I feel like, yeah, similarly during chapter 2, I was like, whoa, like this is so much information, and it is all the science part of the sci-fi up front. I think it took some rereading, but I didn't mind it in the end. Afterwards, it felt smoother to me.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go away entirely though, right? Because then he starts doing like the math to prove that he's not insane right now, right? Like it still sticks around, but I at least gets a little more story driven after that. I will say too though, like so much sci-fi doesn't feel this way, and this is kind of what I expect sci-fi to feel like. Like I kind of want that, like, what is the scientific basis that this is built on, and then like where is the fiction being introduced? I often feel like that's like obscured in at least modern sci-fi. And like I said last episode when we were getting into this one, I was like, oh, like a little nervous because I often don't like sci-fi, especially when it leans on the horrific side of things. This book could become horrific and I'll feel like I at least got my sci-fi fill. Like I feel like this is what, like, I don't know what counts as early sci-fi, but if I had to guess, this is what I expect earlier sci-fi looked like.
Yeah, it feels more like this author was writing sci-fi because he loved space. I can't speak to him, obviously, but like there's like the aesthetic appreciation of space, and then there's like you just kind of love crunching the numbers and like looking up at the stars and calculating shit, and it's like very different, I feel like. And sci-fi now is like contemporary, you know, it's pretty normalized, and so I think, yeah, it becomes a lot more fluffier and like easier for the common person to understand it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I'll start getting into some of the stuff that stuck out. Like there's this, he introduces that the planet is around a double sun, which is already like, I don't know, just like a fun pool. Because this is a thing that really does happen, like two stars that are kind of just tied together. Basically what's happening is they're just orbiting around each other in like a little cycle.
Mm-hmm.
and they just, because of their distance or because of their mass, whatever, they stick around and they don't like merge. Sometimes they do, but like sometimes they just stay orbiting. The one thing that maybe stuck out in this one for me is like I don't know how this would work, but also it's been a long time since I was in a physics class. Is like the planets, they have like a double day cycle on the planet as a result, right? With the two suns.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect that if there was a two sun solar system, that it would be like there's a lot of mass. Our sun is obviously super big, super massive, right? And they kind of get into it in that like, oh, like we would expect the planets to just get eaten by these suns, right? Because they're so heavy. I would at least expect it to be far enough that you wouldn't get a double day cycle. Like they would just be so close to each other in the sky that it would just effectively be one day. So maybe that could be explained away by like the ocean having some willpower in this planetary motion. But that was one weirdness, but not a crazy weirdness. Like I think it's like, oh, okay, including a double sun in 19 whatever, like was probably a ton of fun for readers back then.
Yeah. And there is like brief moments of night, right? Like
Right.
we do get moments where it's like just completely dark.
I think that there's also like a fast day cycle is what I'm gathering from that too, because it almost seems like, I don't know, it was hard to exactly tell, but I like am guessing that their day could be done in like 8 hours, including both of the day cycles. So like they've had to introduce artificial night, which makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, time did feel like it was moving pretty quickly, at least during one of the sun cycles.
Yeah, which is interesting because I think there is a time relevance in the book, especially when we get too close to the end of this half and we're getting the background from oh god, I blanked on his name.
Burton, the pilot.
Burton,
okay.
Yeah. Like he refers to like, oh, like pilots have a really good sense of time and it's like super important to what they do, and it's kind of used as like a symbol of reality, like to show that he's not insane. But it plays with that because it is so disorienting for the main character Kelvin to have time not work as normal. Which is also, he should be prepared for that because he did a test run on Earth, but it still seems to like be off for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's like a relevance to all of the weird sciencey stuff that happens to like the point of the story. So like I'm nerding out about like maybe what is effectively physics details, but I think it explains or at least parallels the ideas of sanity in the book.
That's like an interesting angle to look at it from, because like usually, at least for me, like when I saw the moment of darkness, like that was very striking to like some thoughts I have about the second half. But like, yeah, usually you see darkness as like more tied to like that paranoia, that insanity. But like we're having so much light, I guess. Like the red sun is obviously brighter and the blue is kind of like dimmed down. But speak more on what you're thinking.
yeah I guess I'm thinking just like there's sort of a how do I put, almost like chaotic nature to the environment around them. Inherently the space station is not a chaotic place, right? It's supposed to be as expected. Like he has the 6 weeks of training, and it's not until he shows up that he realized like the true state of things. I think it's kind of to like an outward reflection of what's happening inside. And like I think it's interesting you point out how much light there is, because I guess the angle that gives me is if like someone just like never goes to sleep, right?
Right.
Like if there's always sun, like say you're like, I don't know, you live in a place where this happens, right? Like in the super north or the super south of the earth, where it's like, oh, like I could be up all the time because of the sun if I don't like do something actively to make sure that I sleep. Like I think we have a sense that would drive someone a little crazy, right?
Right.
And so I think what I'm feeling with this connection of environment is like kind of what's the word I want to use? Kind of like a blurring between that and like the sort of social character interactions that are causing kind of the same effects that those things might cause on their own. That was a lot of words, but hopefully that made sense. Yeah.
No, I think it did. Yeah. Also, it could feed into like the shedding light on things, like you have to stare something in the face type of angle. Like instead of the dark being the bad thing, it's like that's when you sleep, that's when you hide, that's when you get peace type of thing.
Yeah, there's a thing of like shedding light on everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the last like physicsy, sciencey, whatever you want to call it thing I was thinking of course, is like the ocean itself, and like they're able to use the experiments to figure out that it's a little bit more than an ocean, right? Like it has a response to stimuli. It like avoids their instruments. We also see that things change. Like the moment where things change for the humans inside of the station is when they X-ray test it. So there's like something to be said of like the ocean seems to be also responding to a stimuli, just a different one and in a different way, which gives the sense of biology, right? Like gives it, and it seems like they acknowledge that it is living. Like I don't think that's really a question. I think they just don't understand what that means for the ocean.
Yeah, they do eventually come to the conclusion that it is a living thing, but yeah, they don't know exactly what that means or if it has like rational thought or can actually communicate or any of those things.
Exactly. And I think it's easy too from the human perspective to like project what we see as life to something like this as opposed to just like, I don't know. I think definition of life is difficult to begin with, but just like being able to acknowledge that a certain number of processes or interactions or something might be life as opposed to like sentience, you know?
Yeah. Which, yeah, we'll definitely get more into that aspect of it when we talk more about the ocean, I suppose.
Yep. So I right now, like I really do like all of the science introduced, even if we had to get through some density. I mean, I didn't really track with the math part either, honestly. It felt less relevant to like, I just want to know how the world works. I always want to know how the world works. This happened last book too, where I was like, yeah, like put it up front. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm glad it sets it out.
Yeah, and we're getting it broken down, I think, into like the hard science of it, and then also there's like the psychological,
yeah,
philosophical way of in which things are working here. So there's like a difference.
100%. I also think it's interesting that our main character is a psychologist, right? Like, what does that say about what's going on here? Whereas, like before, it seems like before him, they are all hard scientists in some way, right? At least that's what I gather based on everyone else's behavior. I don't know if they said that directly.
Yeah, I don't remember what Sartorius is, but I think Snout is like a cyber technician.
Cybernetician. Yeah,
cybernetician,
like
some weird word, yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's like an acknowledgement that something psychological is happening here, and that's why they sent him. That's like my theory on that.
Yeah, that's a question to ponder, the why he's here, because maybe important to note is Solaris was like a big thing to look at in regards to like space exploration, but at the moment it's like a failing endeavor, right? Like they don't really want to put more money into it, but they also don't want to just end it because then they've failed, right? They haven't accomplished anything, and so it's a waste. So why would Kelvin be sent to that situation? Especially as a psychologist, like, what is his purpose there?
Not that I think they give him a ton of information before he gets there. Like, I wonder what information ever made it out of the station versus like just because the people on the station are like, okay, if we say anything, we're going to sound insane. But then they still sent a psychologist. Though, yeah, I know. And the suicide happens like the day he arrives, right?
Yeah, that morning, so, like, I think.
That wasn't like known when he was sent out there. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, speaking of our characters, I guess, something important within this book is the interesting way that these characters communicate to each other. Snout is like, there's like a hubris to him, I think.
He's kind of smug, like in the way he communicates with Kelvin especially.
Yeah, because he doesn't tell Kelvin anything, but he's kind of like, you'll know.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you've got some guests, eh? And it's like, dude, shut up. You could have just said something to begin with. He's a psychologist. Like,
yeah. This I feel like is like the first hint, hint's probably not the right word, but like the beginnings of the way in which these men just don't know how to communicate to each other. And because of that, they will probably all die by the end of this book.
I get where you're coming from because, yeah, like the way they talk to each other in their like three-way phone call is extremely awkward and kind of uncomfortable. And I know part of that is that they're a little bit speaking in code around their guests, right? I think they don't want to give away what they're investigating. But on the other hand, like that's part of why I got a little frustrated with Sartorius is what Kelvin observes, which is he speaks like he's at a conference all the time. Like everything is academic journal speak, and that's like not always a clear and preferable way to communicate even like academic things, right? Like they're speaking, they're not writing, and so I feel like it should sound like speaking and not writing. There's a distance between them all as a result, and like maybe there's something to be said that allows them to maintain sanity in a way, because they can just like, I don't know, they can professionalize or make everything like classroom like, so that makes it like more comfortable to them, but it's not really communication.
Yeah, because Kelvin says that quite directly. Like, the best thing to do is to not try and like push things too far. Don't like not investigate, but don't play the hero and try and like figure out what's happening. Like, just let the guests chill and do your job. And it's like, one of your people kind of killed themselves and he was investigating and kind of just doing his job. So for me, it's like, yeah, we've got the science figured out, basically. But maybe, and this is a crazy concept to a man, but like maybe we need to get a bit emotional here and like actually confront what's happening in like a meaningful way.
You know, I feel like I just experienced a slight read, because when Calvin was like, yeah, I'm just gonna like act like nothing is weird here and nothing weird will happen in response, I was like, that feels very level-headed. Like, yeah, sure. Just like the thought that like, okay, like if you escalate, right, because there's this idea that if you get aggressive with them, like they will get aggressive back, and they are obviously much more powerful than you are. So maybe don't do that. So I can kind of see this like play it cool situation until like you figure something else out. Now I think like not investigating them would not be a good idea, but it does seem like they are to investigating them, just not together, which is maybe the missing bit, right?
I also think there's a difference. Like, we see this a little bit with the history of Solaris. Like, there's a difference between like poking at a thing or like digging into a thing to figure out how it works, and like actually trying to communicate with a thing, right? Like talking to a guest and asking it, or even asking the ocean, right? Like, what is going on? Like, what are you? Confronting the fact that it is not real and it's like a delusion is or should be a part of their scientific research, right? Like, if they want to figure out what's going on, they need to actually figure out what's going on. I'll be curious to see if, like, you actually talk to the guest not as who you think it is, but, like, as it actually is, if that will cause a different result in regards to their response.
Interesting. Like, if they stop playing along with the characters that they are.
Right.
I guess so. I feel like there's been some interaction already where, like, maybe not. Like, I feel like there was, like, an awkwardness in the first interactions he has with, I guess I will still just call her Harry, but, like, her copy. I feel like there's some awkwardness in there because he has the sense that it's not her, but I guess maybe he doesn't lean into that enough, right?
Yeah, like, she's obviously confused, and like she plays into that confusion. She probably even believes it, to be fair. But like, yeah, there's that awkwardness, and then he sends her off in a rocket, crazy. And then he just kind of goes along with it and even plays into it, right? Like, the intimacy he has with her is honestly a little bit disturbing.
Shocking, yeah.
Because like, we don't even know if that's like accurate to how they were in reality.
Yeah, I think also not knowing their relationship, also just like not knowing what is going on in her head, which is like a weird thing to say, like, because maybe there's not a brain, right? But just like there's no sense that this is like an independent, like, thinking human in the same way. Like, there's no way to understand like what that relationship is as a result. So that is all to say, like, he is being very bold about it, to be like touching her and stuff, right? Like, he's like, he doesn't know where he stands, you know?
Yeah. I just feel like it's a bigger way to think of, like, there's a difference between living with trauma or like confronting your trauma, right? Like,
for sure.
And I guess none of these people have ever confronted their trauma. Or, I don't know. Snout is an interesting case, because I don't know if he has trauma or if he's just a very violent individual that wants to kill somebody.
Okay, right. Because of his whole, like, oh, like, you have these really bad thoughts thing, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
It was bizarre, and I'm not sure I fully understood it.
I think I understand the concept of, like, sometimes you think a thing that you don't mean.
Yeah, intrusive thoughts. That I get. It was like the lining up. I felt like that was trying to be an explanation for maybe what he has experienced with the guests. We may have to loop back to this concept later, but like that seems to be a very different interpretation of what's going on, to be like, oh, like this is bad because of the bad thoughts that I had in the past. That's like very different than what Calvin is experiencing. So I'm confused as to where that's coming from. I guess the connective thread could be guilt, which I could believe, but it doesn't seem, I don't know, just something seems different about that flavor wise.
Right. Yeah, he might be using it to excuse his behavior, right? If he did do something in the past, then he could say, it was a mistake. It was just like that's I don't want to say typical, because I don't know, but like that does happen in abuse, right? Like somebody gets hit and it's like, I didn't mean to do that, like I'll never do that again.
Yeah.
So, or I could also see it as like presently he's using it to excuse what he's doing to the guest now, of like he's having intrusive thoughts, but like he's utilizing them for research purposes.
He did say some disturbing things about that, like, that implied what he was doing to the guest, so that makes sense. After the rocket launch one, he's like, oh, like, you got right to the rocket launch, you skipped over the, like, basically injuring them part.
Yeah, so I mean that might just be his whole life. I don't really know, but he gives me bad vibes.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know. We've also not seen a hint of who his guest is, which is also interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've seen a hint of Sartorius, but like we really don't know anything about their guests.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess like to tie that up though, like we talked a little bit of them like not communicating well to each other, and they all have their own guests, and like their research is far too focused on what they are and not what's going on, right? I wonder if this will become continually irrelevant, like the fact that they are very secretive with one another. Like it seems like now they've decided like we're just going to split back to our own things, kind of do our own research, and then report back later, right? Like if I get the sense that if they were much more open about who their guests were, and like we all understand what's going on here, right? We understand that these aren't actually people. We understand that they are related to our memories. Like I understand that that's what's the word? Man, I lost it. But like the feeling of sharing those things that are a part of your memory can feel intimate, right? With these people you don't really know that well and whom you're not exactly looking to welcome to your lives based on the way you talk to each other. I think like something needs to be dropped there, right? Like some facade visage that they are holding on to, I would say, especially Sartorius and Snout are, with the way that they talk and present themselves. Like if we can get past that, maybe there's a chance that this could work. Now I'm not 100% sure that bringing the guests into one spot is going to do a whole lot. But I think at least having that openness where they can see each other's guests and give that outsider perspective, maybe there's a chance. And I think maybe that's like paralleling trauma in a way too, of like, better out than in some ways,
Yeah. So yeah, they're doing obviously all of their scientific research into what the ocean is and what these guests are and blah, blah, blah. We also, I would assume everybody's on the same page, but also it's impossible to know. Kelvin, at least, has a general idea of like when this seemed to start happening, at least like human experience, right? With the pilot you mentioned before, Burton, seeing some weird ocean formations, very different from the guests we experience now. So there's obviously been a development from the ocean, I would say. But they also seem to come from a missing, I don't know if he was also a pilot.
I think so, but I don't know, actually. One of the other researchers, scientists, whatever. Yeah.
A missing person's memories, that missing person being Fechner, who I don't think was ever found.
Yeah, this one was kind of a fun reveal in a way, because, you get the story of like a Fechner, like, I guess falling out of the ship they're on. I don't know if that's the word for it, but it ends up in the ocean. And then like totally unrelatedly, you get the Burton story of, oh, like I was seeing all these, gardens and this, that, the other. And I was reading that part being like, well, everything we know about this so far is that it comes from your own memory. So how is it that Burton didn't recognize any of the stuff? And then it comes out that it was Fetchner the whole time. And it's like, oh, wow. Like, that's kind of cool and interesting.
Right.
Because then it brings up so many questions about why that is and like what the ocean did in response to receiving a human body.
Yeah, and it's interesting that like you can see from the report that the ocean doesn't really know what it's doing with like these formations, especially when it creates like the child. It's like not the right size, doesn't move right, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's almost like it read a book about humans, but like didn't see one, you know?
Yeah. But then we get to this point where none of our people are in the ocean, to be fair. But yet Solaris is still able to like look into their minds and create perfect copies of people they knew.
Yeah, it's like strongly different from where we start because we're talking about people whose brains aren't in the ocean, and then also like what, like a question of what is creating it almost, I guess, like beyond like the ocean is creating it. But when the ocean shows those images to Burton, it seems like it's forming itself in those images in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like creating environmental effects or kind of shape-shifting itself to depict these images. What is going on inside the ship? Like the ocean is presumably not in there. They talk extensively about it being pretty much airtight, watertight, whatever you want to say. And so like what is going on? Like where are they coming from?
Yeah, we do know the planet seems to be toxic. At least that's what's attributed to like Burton and his hallucinations.
Right. Well, it's like almost certain. Well, at least the way to describe it, almost certainly the reason why Fetchner ends up like falling in is because of a poison gas inhalation, I guess.
Yeah, although there's some weirdness about like the radio tower going down and like communications being off, which might have been the planet doing something.
Right.
That's not really answered. So like there's weirdness with that aspect of things. For the present that's happening within this book, I do think it's interesting that a few times we've gotten Kelvin noting the like air ducts or like the air conditioning. And the fact that there is air moving throughout this station. So my assumption is it's not as sealed as it's meant to be. Like something is circulating through the air. Because also when he gets there, it's like almost immediately after he takes off his spacesuit and like is actually in the station, he starts to almost feel that paranoia, right? Oof. Like that's really like when it hits him.
I think you're making a great point because there's also like a moment of hesitation of him even taking the spacesuit off. And like, yeah, the repeated mentions of the poison gas could be like, foreshadowing this a bit too. I kind of just thought maybe it was acting at a distance, honestly, because we don't really know. We don't know the full angle of what type of fiction is going to come into the science fiction. Like, is this are they going to try to give it like a nice, good scientific explanation, or is it going to be more like cosmic type or magical in a way, right? Like there's a few different angles it could go. So I kind of just thought like, well, if this being has adopted maybe some type of sentience, it is quite powerful, right? It seems to work on the gravity level, which seems like it's either massive or it's powerful or it's both. So I could see, and also the fact that gravity is literally a force at a distance. Like I could see it doing something without being inside.
Yeah, because we say it's like the ocean that's alive, right? But like based on what you're saying and based on what I'm saying, it's more than the ocean, right? Like how far does this organism actually go and expand?
That's actually a good point too. I hadn't even brought it that far in my own head, but that's also a good point. Like it could just be more than what they are acknowledging as the bounds of the being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also have this back of the head thought that I'm not convinced of, but could be the case that when the ocean gets the body, it doesn't like learn from it per se, but it like they become one. I guess like if that were the case, it probably would do a better job of mimicking humans. So that's the thing that's like holding me back. But I could see it being that like now Fetchner is like trying to communicate via the sort of combined power that he would have with the ocean being.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that like broaches into like the big question nobody's asking. Or I mean, Sartorius kind of asks it, but he's not actually willing to ask it, I guess. Of like, why? Why is the ocean doing this, right? So like he seems to think it's doing it with like without intent, like it's just doing it to do it, which I mean could play into like the hive mind theory, right? If it's just trying to collect or bring in everything so that it's one thing. It might just be like an instinct to do that.
Yeah, I could even see it being just like a random molecules theory, right? Like, well, just like, I don't know. This is just like a thing we don't understand works this way, but it's not even necessarily a thing of, intent or choice or being. It's just like you do A and B happens.
Right, because like I got the impression, I mean, we have the Burton story, but like it seems as though there have been multiple incidents on Solaris that have been passed off as hallucinations. So it might just be like other people being on this planet is causing it to react a certain way.
Yeah, you could even see it too, like, and this is still kind of a passive response, but not. It requires some understanding of this being life. It could be like an immune system, right? Where like the response to it'd be a very specific and maybe odd immune response, right? But like the response to beings like humans is this. This is just like what it naturally does. It's not choosing to do it. It just somehow evolved to do this, you know?
Yeah. And if there is like intent, I mean, Snout sees it as like evil intent. Sartorius doesn't see any intent, but it could be good intent, right? Like this person has flooded your mind to the point that I can create an exact copy of them. You think about them a lot. So why would I not try to communicate with you through something or through someone that like you know and who understands you and who you understand, right? Like
Yeah, exactly. I think if I didn't think this book was going to have some dark ending to it, I would think that this is what's happening. Like I had this thought of like, what if it's just communication, right? It's just it doesn't know how to communicate with humans, so this is its best shot. And so we're having a bit of intent impact mismatch here, right? Or it's like trying to like perform mimicry or like just like find a branch between itself, the being, and you, the human, and this is the best it can do. And unfortunately, because it is not human, it's doing things that are then leading people to psychosis, you know?
yeah, it depends on if it's the planet that's the problem or if it's humans that are the problem, right? Because like if the end is basically like humans don't actually want to communicate, and that's like the point, right? Like full stop. Then what the ocean doesn't really matter, I guess, right? What its intent is doesn't really matter. It's like it's the humans that are the problem in this situation because they're not willing to change and like see the world for what it really is, I guess.
Yeah, or just at least try to figure what's actually going on, right? Like if they're unwilling to like communicate about that stuff, right? They're only willing to communicate about the science and they never get beyond that. Like, yeah, it is kind of on them. Because then, you never figure out what the intent was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like I've said a lot of words. I don't know if any of them have made sense, to be honest. I feel like this is like a very abstract thing. Like this is a very abstract book. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we saw that coming, but it is like an abstract book, and everything, we said it's dense. Like everything could be a conversation in a sense because it's like interpreting and trying to understand and also like figure out how it works, but like also the book's gonna have a point, like what's driving this, right? There's a lot going on here in this little book.
Yeah
We talked about what the ocean itself could be or could be up to. There was like a moment of change that led to this behavior, or I guess potentially two moments of change is the way I see it. Like there's the X-ray experiment, which we know is like done, I don't know if illegally is the right word, but definitely not with approval. I assume some sort of ethics board was supposed to give them the go ahead and they did not get that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that seems to be one major change, and then the other major change we already talked about was like Fetchner's body ending up in the ocean. Yeah, and this felt like a situation of like humans being humans, right? Like of course, of course they did some stupid X-ray experiment that led to this.
Yeah, which this feeds into like I think something I mentioned before of like humans like doing something to figure out what something is instead of trying to like properly communicate with it. Like, I guess Solaris is weird in that they've tried to communicate with it with like the stimuli and stuff like that, and it's had no interest. But the fact that it has no interest should be communication enough that it doesn't want you.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the answer here.
No, right. That's the vibe it's giving. Like, yeah, can we figure out ways to observe that aren't interact, right? You know?
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, this X-ray is like, I guess oh my gosh, I guess it was like a last-ditch type of thing.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
And then a guy killed himself, so it obviously did not work out.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is what makes me say the immune system thing, right? Like, is it... The thing is, it's obviously very big and powerful, so if it wanted to physically get rid of them, it probably could. But we also don't really know how it works. But, like, one way or another, it's hard to think that it's not trying to get rid of them.
Right. Yeah, we obviously don't know what the guests want. I think the fact that they want to stick so close to their person, I don't know if this is the vibe, but if it is, like, a negative intention, it could feel almost siren-like, right? Like they're trying to draw in the person they're with.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you think that they're trying to, like, I don't know, I think already at this point, Kelvin is kind of trapped enough, right? And that he's like, at least she should see it this way, where like he's behaving like this is normal and she just is the person that she's supposed to be. So like, what's the next step? Or is this the end game? Is the end game just for them to stay here forever because they're with people they want to be around? Like, I guess, like, what is the siren's meal part?
I partially think it's when they kill themselves, to be honest.
So you think it's always supposed to end up there?
I think so.
I feel like we're seeing the stages, right? Like, we get Kelvin at the beginning of it where he's like, it's kind of whatever. Like, I'm just kind of basically ignore that anything weird is happening when I am behaving like this, right? Like when I'm around my guest. And then you have Sartorius, who's like fully panicked about it, right? Like it seems like he's constantly addressing them and like doesn't want anyone to see them or talk about that. Like, and he doesn't want to see anyone else. He's just like, no, like I'm addressing them all the time. They kind of have a grip on him. I don't really know where Snout falls into it, but then of course, like we have Gabarian who like succumbs to it in the end, right? Like I kind of think that's the path of escalation. I just don't know what's going to change in the behavior and like Harry's behavior to lead to that. Like there's nothing is like suggesting anything in particular yet, and we don't really know what's happening behind the scenes for Sartorius.
Right. It's also, I guess, important to note that like this is created from their memories. So like it doesn't matter what the truth of the situation is, whether Kelvin was guilty or not. The fact that he thinks he's guilty might feed into how Harry acts and reacts to things, right?
Yeah, like she may throw guilt on him too, even if that's not what actual Harry believed. Or like whether or not that's right, I guess.
Right.
Do you think Kelvin, is there not a chance that he could survive? Isn't there kind of a flavor of him being different than the other two?
I think the fact that he's a psychologist makes him different, but there's that concept of like doctors make the worst patients, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not willing to deal with it.
He was like pretty quickly willing to call himself clinically insane, which I thought was interesting. Like, I think that gives me kind of two things. One is that he will submit to whatever's happening here, which is not looking good for him. But another that's like a little more realistic than the other guys, I guess. Which like could potentially give him a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to decide where I'm settled on some of the like theory angle things. Like I kind of want to bet that Kelvin's gonna survive, but mostly because he's like the main character, honestly. That's certainly no guarantee for him, but I don't know. I have a slight leaning on him surviving.
I wonder what that looks like, though.
Yeah, the other guys are further along. Like, they're likely to die. He's likely to know that and respond, you know?
Yeah, but if he does go back and, like, tries to talk about this...
Oh, no, I think he's fucked. So, like, I think it's not going to be any different than what we saw happen, and I think that point was made for that reason. Like, if he survives, like, tough, you know, he's not going to have a normal life. And as Snout says that too, right? Like, we could tell him, but then what, right? Like, I guess the sanatorium won't be so bad, right? Like there's a kind of one way out of here.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the purpose, though, right? Like, we were talking about why was Kelvin sent here specifically. If they're trying to end research on Solaris, does sending a psychologist, knowing that hallucinations happen on this planet, and then, like, to your benefit, everything goes wrong, everybody dies, and you come back and maybe you're blamed for killing them, or at the very least something, you've gone insane, and so now we can decide Solaris is like a dead end.
So he's kind of like a scapegoat in this case. Like they want to end it, and like this is like, all right, like basically they've trapped him into this, so that way they can redirect the blame from like, oh, this is a failed project, versus like we had this like crazy guy go in and kill our people.
Like, yeah, maybe, because we don't know exactly what happened with Harry still, right? Like, we know the basics, and it seems like it was a pretty cut and dry incident, but that's not necessarily the case. It seems like they traveled together a great deal. So, like, if they were partners in more ways than one, is there a certain amount of, like, public scrutiny on what happened? Is, like, Kelvin known for this incident? Would that make him a better scapegoat in this case to send to a place that's already unstable?
Interesting. So if people know something we don't know, that could make him a choice.
Right.
Yeah, he's been kind of cagey about the details, right? Like he's been willing to say a decent amount of information as far as like the background of, like enough information that you could get why he feels guilty about it, right? But he hasn't said what he said. Right, like there's details.
And there's still a note that I think she left for him that he still has, that we haven't seen either.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And of course, there's always the unreliable narrator.
Yeah, and I was wondering if that would come into play as either from the beginning of the story or as we went on. It's just interesting to see him comment on that idea almost, though, where he's like, well, like maybe the gas got to me, or like, I don't know, like, yeah, maybe I'm insane, right? Like things that would give you the potential for that, where he's like, I guess not. I feel like maybe the author's not trying to put that across.
Right, because I feel like these people are not coming into this situation insane. It's a normal person can very quickly lose their mind under the right circumstances.
Exactly, yeah. I guess in which case he could develop into an unreliable narrator, but at least I don't think he's a baseline there.
Yeah. But yeah, for the ocean, I don't really know intent-wise, because like what I'm thinking of could be with intent or without intent. It could go either way.
Yeah, I guess there's like an angle here of it could just be trying to teach them a lesson, but then why bring that to the point of death? Unless that just means that, Gabarian was unsuccessful in learning said lesson. But there's a thing in here about don't project humanity, right? Like, I think Snout gets into it. So I don't want it to be that, because that feels too human, right? Like to be like, oh, like let's all like take a moral home with us from the ocean. Like I think it's not that. Like that's why I've mentioned the immune system thing a couple times. Like that is my biggest leaning, is like this is just like maybe a complicated way of doing it, but it is a way to like get rid of them and like scare the rest of them off,
Mm-hmm. Or the wanting to like learn from them, but not necessarily for some like grand human purpose, but just because it's almost like a sponge, right? Like it wants to collect information for the sake of collecting it.
I think that would be like my favorite ending potentially, is like if this was like, yeah, some version of that, or like it was just trying to communicate and it was misinterpreted, like something where it's just like this is an alien thing, and like someone mentions it too as like this being like first contact, right, with a new species. Like if it's just that, it's just like first contact gone wrong, it's just like a species we don't know, maybe there are even more of it out there we just haven't discovered, and it's just like there's no like, we struggle enough with cultural differences as humans, like only imagine interspecial ones, right, where they didn't develop together at all. Like that it's just a thing that went wrong.
Right. Yeah, and I think that would also play into kind of the way humans think they're bigger than they are, right? Like we're dealing with all of space here. And so like a few humans dying is like a big, well, maybe not a big deal for this government system, however it works, but like it's a big deal for the characters in this book, right? Their lives are very important. But for like an entire planet and like an entire entity that's this large, it might not put that same importance on these human lives. They might not mean anything. It's like ants, right? Like,
yeah, a massive cosmic being. Yeah, who cares, right? Like, it could just not, yeah, have any regard for humans.
Yeah, and I kind of get that impression with like the way it almost ignored stimuli, right? Like it was curious and then it didn't care at all. So it's kind of like, I'll play into you a little bit and like learn what you're about, and now you're boring me.
It could also be like the humans did actively try to like research and like explore it in ways that it clearly didn't want, right? Like by the way we see it react, and now it's just doing it in reverse. And so like when we think of the punishment comment, it's just like, oh, like we are just test subjects now.
Yeah, that's true.
And actually, I guess they did get into that a little bit, right? Of like like if it's running experiments, it's running bad ones, right? But I don't think that counts it out as far as like it could at least be trying to like turn the tables.
Right. Yeah, because it's saying it's a bad experiment because it's not changing behavior, right? There's no reaction to what's happening. But time, right? We've talked about time in this. It could be so much different for this entity versus like a human lifetime, right? Like,
true.
We saw how it started with Fetchner. And so like, what if these versions of the guests are the reaction to that first instance, right? Like, we don't know how long this experiment has been running.
It's a good point. Also, like 4 people is not enough for conclusions, at least from our human perspective. So it would make sense for not much to change if he's just like, let me see what different humans do to the same thing, you know?
Right.
I had one question here of, will this become more horrific? I mean, I just think the answer is yes to that, just based on the path that previous characters take.
Yeah. I definitely think it's more like psychological horror based on everything. I also think, like I mentioned before, I think something's up with the air and the vents and stuff like that. I think that's feeding into their paranoia, and I wouldn't be surprised if these characters fought each other or even killed each other, or like things escalated in that way.
Yeah, I almost wondered too if like one of the thoughts I was having related to theories was just about how Kelvin will behave if he has to fight back against Harry in some way, now that he's like decided to lean in a little bit more, because obviously he's kind of fought back once by trying to send her off, right? And like if him becoming warmed up to her is like gonna cause him to succumb to whatever it comes next, that like is connecting back to what we were just talking about, and that like what if like one of the other guys threatens Harry, or like is telling him how to behave with Harry, or like, you know, like something happens or we learn something, and like now he has to do something, and Kelvin decides, I'd rather protect Harry than protect my proven fellow human, so then he like becomes violent about it or something, you know?
Yeah, I can imagine that. But yeah, I think that's it. I think we stopped 50%, obviously, but it was kind of like the perfect place to stop as well. We got a really good discussion between the characters, like just before we ended, so that was nice. And as always, if you have any thoughts and theories about Solaris, all of our socials are in the description. And
please throw us a follow, like, subscribe, or 5-star review on whatever app or website you're listening to us on. And thank you for listening.
Bye-bye. Wow, you do the thanks for listening these days, huh?
The way things have changed.